Okay, just going to share the live stream real quick. Then we'll go ahead and get started. No Brianna tonight? Okay. Okay, I should be there for them. So we will pick up here with chapter 4. We were about 2/3 of the way through it, but we were going to go to credit cards. So essentially, credit cards are just another tool that are out there that allows you to borrow money that you agree to pay back with interest. Just because the big thing in this chapter is the compound interest ideas. But the idea is that if you only pay the minimum monthly payment, it's going to take a long time to pay off the bill. They do this kind of thing on purpose. So if we go to that example, suppose you have a credit card balance of $1,500 and the APR is 21%. If you want to pay off the credit card within 1 year, how much would we need to pay every month? So I will just go there. That example. Now again, compound interest means that we are dealing with we'll do it this way. P times 1 plus R over N all to the NT power. That's the overarching formula that we're going to need. But the 1,500 there is going to be principal, APR of 21%. So that means R is going to be what number?
21.
Yep, 0.21. How much would we need every month to pay this off if it compounds once a month? So to do that, I'm just going to pull this up here so I can work the equation here for you. So A is P times 1 plus R over N. To the NT power. So 1,500 over 1 plus 0.21 over 12, all raised to the If we're doing this for 1 year, how many times would it compound? 12. So that will be the exponent on that. And with the calculator, it's always good to do the parentheses first. So 0.21 divided by 12 plus 1 should give us 1.0175, it looks like, all raised to the 12th power. So if you raise that to the 12th power, then $1,500 times, that looks like 1.231439, and so on. Times the 1,500 gives you what number?
1,847.16 rounded.
1,847.16. So that right there is going to be the answer to part B. How much will you pay over the lifetime of the loan? To figure out each month, divide that by 12. So each month you're going to be paying 153.93 a month. So we got A, we got B. Total interest paid would be the difference from the 1,500 that you started and the 1,847.16 that you'll pay. So the total interest here would be 347.16 in interest. Part D, what would the payments be if you could get a card with an APR of 18%? So the only thing that would change in this problem is that the 0.21 would go to 0.18. So if you work that out again with 0.18 instead of the 0.21, let's see what number you come up with.
$1,793.43.
Yep, so 1,793.43, that's for the whole year, right? So then for the monthly payment,
149.45.
yeah. Yep, so the new payment becomes 149. $0.45 a month. With that little change in interest. Any questions on that example? Okay. So I will go back to the slideshow here. Next type of loan that can come up is mortgages or loans when you buy houses or homes. Typically, there's a down payment that you have to give. Usually it's like 1% or something, some percentage of the house price. So for example, if it's a $200,000 house and you need a 1% down payment, you would have to pay $2,000 for that. Usually closing costs involved. When you take out a mortgage, there's a ton of paperwork that goes along with it. I just went through the process myself a couple of years ago. But a lot of paperwork involved. Usually you need an attorney of some kind. That stuff costs money there. Sometimes fees can be charged as points, which can be used to give you a discounted interest rate if you're willing to pay more, is the idea. But those are just some key things there that come with mortgages. There's two types of them, fixed rate and adjustable. Fixed rate means it's going to be the same interest rate the entire time that you have the loan. Adjustable rate means that it could change, but it'll be based off of what the economy does. So if you think the economy is going to get better, interest rates will get better, the adjustable rate might be cheaper. But if things take a turn for the worse, it may hurt you too with the adjustable one. We have this chart here, and the rather depressing thing, near the start of when you start paying off a mortgage, most of the money you're giving them goes toward what? Interest. Probably about, what would you say, 75% of the money you give them is interest. Kind of sad, huh? Yeah. There is a way to avoid that, though, and that's if you pay more than the minimum payment. Anything that you do above the minimum goes right on your principal. So, like in this case, there's a $537 payment that's required every month. Say you paid an extra $50 on top of that. That extra $50 would go directly toward your principal, and none of it would go to interest. Fun fact for you, doing $100 more than the minimum payment usually pays off a 30-year loan 7 or 8 years ahead of time. So you can save quite a bit of money in interest doing that. Only other thing to note here, if you wanted to figure out just how much of this is interest, They gave you a Y value of 537, which includes both the interest and the principal. If you figure out the principal amount, so about 150, they say 153. Subtracting the difference there will give you what just the interest is. So in that case, 537 minus 153 to give you a section of interest that's about $384 at the start. But any questions on how to read the chart like that there? Okay, next example. Great Bank offers a $100,000 30-year 5% fixed rate loan with closing costs of $500 plus 1 point. Big Bank offers a lower rate of 4.75%, but with closing costs of $1,000 plus 2 points. Evaluate the two options. Which of those do you think would be the better choice? Second one? Chances are I'd go with the second one. That's because of the points. And then it also has a better interest rate.
And the points lower than the
Yeah.
So
Yep.
would it be like 2.75 or that lower?
Yep. So what that would be, 2 points there would lower it to 2.75, but you would have to give them 2% of the total amount to do that. So you can make that go to 2.75%, but in this case, it would cost an extra $2,000 to do that. Does
So
that
you're really paying 3,000?
really be paying $3,000
Yeah.
for in closing costs? Yeah. Yep. But the thing is, with these points, you wouldn't necessarily have to take them. So if you didn't want to pay the extra $2,000, then you could just keep the same interest rate of 4.75 and only pay $1,000. Yeah. That's usually how that works with that. But we can just do some quick math on this. So if we try Bank A, so let's just do 100,000 times 1 plus 0.05 divided by 12 raised to the 12 times 30 power. So that right there is Bank A. B would be similar. So in that case, 1 plus 0.0475 over 12 to the 12 times 30 power. I'll just have you do the math real quick on this. We'll see if your answers match mine. And I'm just going to go to the nearest dollar here for these. So rounded to the nearest dollar should be about this. Getting different numbers. Okay. Now, if you do the parentheses first, so 0.05 divided by 12, then plus the 1, yeah, then raised to the 12 times 30 would be 360, right? So that raised to the 360th power. $447,308. Let's see. Let's see if I can.
Where'd you get the 475?
Oh, so for that, for Bank B, that was their interest rate for them. But before we even get into the lower interest rates here, which one is already the better deal? B. And in the example, they allow you to even take 2% more off of the interest rate with the plus 2 points. The first bank is only letting you do that with 1. So that means B is going to be an even better deal because the interest rate can go down farther, potentially. So Bank B is definitely the better choice there of the two. Not even considering adding the points or anything like that. But the points just make it even better. Any questions about that? Good to go? Okay. Okay. Next thing that they talk about here is credit scores. Something that you'll probably need whenever applying for loans of some kind. Typically, it comes from a couple of different companies. Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian are the big ones. And basically, it's a number that includes different things like how good you are at paying your bills on time, how much debt you have, the number and type of loans that you have, how long have you had them, are you using all of the money that you can borrow, or have you had to do things like get debt sent to collections or file for bankruptcy or those sorts of things. Generally, the higher the number, the better the credit score. Most credit scores are from 300 to 850. Usually a higher score makes it easier to qualify for loans. I think the magic number that they say, most things, if you have a score that's 720 or higher, you're probably going to get, if not the best rate, pretty close to it. If you start getting below 700s there's usually some reason behind it, though. I did know one person at one point that had a 900 credit score, which I heard is the highest that it could be. But basically, it's just a number of how good you are at paying back money, is the idea. So here's an example. If you have a 720 credit score and you were going to buy a new car, you could get a loan at 6.88%. If you had a credit score that was 800, it would go down to 5.61. But if your credit score is not good, say it was 400, you would have to take a loan at 14.17% for the same amount of money. And the reason that it's like that there, the higher the credit score, the more faith that the person that you're borrowing money from has that you're going to pay it back. The lower the score, that means the less faith they have that they're going to get their money back. So just like all greedy corporations do, they jack the interest up to account for that. And that leads us to the last part of this chapter, which is going to be taxes. One of the things in life you can't avoid. So to figure out how much income you have, add up all of your sources of income that you get from jobs or, say, business transactions, that sort of thing. You can take off certain things, particularly how much you contribute to a 401k or a retirement account, or an HSA, which is a health safety account. So there's a couple of minor adjustments there. Once you do that, that's your adjusted gross income, or how much money you made minus things that you contributed to that you can count towards your taxes. Everyone gets certain amounts of the deductions and exemptions. Whatever's left over is your taxable income. And basically whatever that amount is the amount where you figure out how much you owe in taxes to the government. The idea is that you want to get that number as close to the actual number as possible. You don't really want to get a huge refund or owe them a lot of money. You want it to be as close to zero as you can when you're filing your taxes. But we'll do an example of this. Susie earned wages of $48,600 received $750 in interest from a savings account, contributed $1,200 to a tax-deferred retirement plan. She was entitled to deductions totaling $14,250. So in other words, she made $48,600. What else did she get? $750 from interest. So if we add those up, that would give us $49,350. She contributed $1,200 to a tax-deferred retirement plan. And we can do what with contributions? Subtract them in addition to any other deductions. What were her other deductions? $14,250. So if you take the $49,350 minus contributions and minus deductions, what are you left over with? $33,900. So this right here is the adjusted gross income. The $49,350 is just her gross income for question 1. And the $33,900 would also be considered her taxable income as well. Any questions on that example? Okay. Depending on your life situation, there are different ways to file. Single, if you're married, it could be married filing jointly with your partner or married filing separately. So if you each want to do your own, or if you're the head of a household, so unmarried or supporting a child in that situation. But each one of those have different things that you can deduct from them, is the idea. Tax deductions lower your taxable income based on certain things that everyone is allowed to deduct. So anything that you give to charity, you can pretty much deduct that. Any type of mortgage interest, you're allowed to deduct that, and state taxes. Most people take the standard deduction, which I believe was that 14,250 number from that example. But if you're charitable donations, mortgage interest, and state taxes are above that number, you can actually get more by itemizing or claiming more than the standard. Tax credits are subtracted from your tax due. Refundable tax credits, you'll receive the excess back. Non-refundable, you won't get it back. But some other things there, education expenses typically fall under those. If you install solar panels on your house, or if you earned income from other sources, then that wouldn't be taxed normally. Or if it is taxed, there's going to be that credit that they'll give you. So it won't be taxed at such high of an amount as other things.
You don't do the itemized list for the add-on?
Probably not. So if you don't do the itemized one, they'll just assume that if you have any of these, it'll be less than that 14,000 number. Any other questions about that? Okay. Other types of tax credits are there. Child tax credit. So if you have children below 17, they give you a credit for that. If you have a child under 13 and have a parent that's unable to care for themselves, there's a credit there for daycare and other expenses like that. The American Opportunity Tax Credit is more of a education one. Tuition, books, equipment, school fees, claim all of the first $2,000 that you spend toward that. Lifetime learning credit. So this would be after you get a degree and say you went for like a master's or a PhD or something. That's a lifetime learning credit. Adoption credit, if you chose to adopt a child, there are things that come along with that. Earned income tax, it's refundable for low income taxpayers with and without children. Don't quote me on this, but I think this last one shows up for things that are like below poverty line kind of thing. Tax rates. Progressive income tax means higher income means that you pay a higher tax rate. Or the less you make, the lower the rate is that you pay. Marginal tax rate is the highest tax rate you pay for any portion of your income, also called a tax bracket. Basically, it speeds up the process of figuring out how much you owe with these tax brackets. The effective tax rate is just a simple percentage of how much you pay in taxes over what your income is times 100%. If you want to figure out my taxes are 20% or something like that, that's the quick way of getting there. But here's a tax table for you. So if you made up to $9,950, you're going to pay 10% tax on that. But here's what happens. The next one is 12% up to $40,525. Here's what that means. So For $9,950, you're paying 10%. Say you made $30,000 last year, just as an example. That falls before you get to the end of the 12% bracket, right? So take the 30,000 that you made minus the last tax bracket ended at 9,950, right? Times the 12% there. But the point that I'm showing you here, the first $9,950 you've already paid 10% on. You don't have to pay it again in the second part over here. Or if you do, you would be paying it twice on the first $9,950 that you made. Does that make sense with that? Okay, and then if you were working that out there, if I did my math right, looks like $3,401 in taxes owed. If anyone wants to verify that. Does that work out? Or if it helps, 9,950 times 0.10 plus inside this parentheses would be what, 20,050 times the 0.12.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Okay. That's just to give you an example of how that works with that table there. Something you should know, these tax brackets change every year, pretty much. Generally, the amounts go up over time. So like in this one for 2024, instead of 9,950, now it's on the first 11,600 in that first 10% bracket. But this is why filing taxes every year is a necessity, is because these always change. So the example there, if you are single and have a taxable income of $95,000, how much would you owe in 2024? And then same for 150. So that example, for the $95,000 income, taxes would be 10% times the 9950. We're going to keep going up through the next bracket, right? So 0.12 times whatever 40,525 minus 9950 is. That's just because we can subtract that from the last bracket. Right. Yeah. So then the next one after that was 22%. $86,375 minus what was the end of the last bracket before that? Because we stopped being in the 12% bracket when we got to what number? 40,525. And then plus 0.24 or 24% times 95,000 minus the 86,375 number at the end of that last bracket. Now, if you want to, you could break this down by number. So 995 plus 40,525 minus 9950. So 0.12 times 30,575 and 0.22 times 86,375 minus 40,525 for 45,850 plus 0.24 times 95,000 minus 86,375 for 8625. So then when you type all that in, $16,821 in taxes owed. So then the effective tax rate would be the 16,821 divided by the taxable income of 95,000 times 100%. So it looks like it'll be about 17.71%. Okay. Any questions on how that works though? With the tax brackets? Okay. Should we do the other one for 150, or do you think you get the idea there?
I think one more.
Okay, we can do that. So say we do this again with the 2017 amounts. So 150,000 income. So the first part of this is going to be exactly the same. Up to the 86,375 one. Now 150,000. Are we still going to be in that same bracket of 24%?
Yes.
Yep, because it goes up to 164,925. So the only thing that's going to change here, where we had 95,000 before, that's going to become 150,000 now. So 995 for the first one. Plus 3,669 for the second term. $10,087 for the third term, and then plus 0.24 times 150,000 minus 86,375, or 0.24 times 63,625. What number do you get?
38,976.
You said 30,000,
38,976.
38,976. I think I have a different number here.
I got 30,021 now.
Okay, yeah, 30,000. That matches what I have. Okay, so then the effective tax rate is the 30,021 divided by the 150,000.
So this 3,669. Yeah, so you would have to multiply it by 1.2. Just because that number was running multiplied that times it's there. So you're just doing it again there. Yeah. But the only thing. This number originally is 3669. It's gonna be 12%. 40,525 minus 950. So it's really 12% of that number. But when you do 12% of that number, you get that. But essentially, your numbers have equal size. You don't have to do that process there with 3669 and 10,087. So if you do that plus 10,087 plus 995 plus that number, that number. 270. And then you're there. Yeah. Just because we already did that over here, we already multiplied those numbers through. But we were simplifying it down. I think you're here to that last number. So 95,000 6,375. Then you have to multiply that by 20. I think it's 0.24 instead of 0.25. Because it's the 24%, right? So then that last number should be 2,070. Yeah. Just to make sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Good. So the effective tax rate for that one is about 20.01% when dividing that out there. Any questions about that idea? Okay. That was good that we went over that because I know one of the future assignments will be figuring out some tax information. I think we'll skip over that example for now with Susie. We'll just talk over a couple of these other ones here.
So single taxable income of 65,000. If you decide to start making monthly payments to a tax deferred savings plan, how does that affect your take home pay? So determining how much of that you would pay in taxes if you weren't investing it. So if you put it in the tax deferred plan, you just keep it and you don't put anything in taxes. If you make 65,000, what tax bracket would you be in according to the table? %. So if that money wasn't going in there, you'd have to pay 22% tax on it. So 22% of 500 would be $110. So 500 is going into your savings account, but 110 of it is going to be tax related if it wasn't. So what would happen here? 390 or the difference from 500 and 110 is the difference you would see in your paycheck if you were going to move $500 a month over to that savings account. But basically where the benefits come in, you're getting 500 in your savings every month, but you're really only paying 390 out of your paycheck to get it. So basically you're saving on that tax that you don't have to pay when you use that account. Does that make sense? Okay. Other types of taxes that you probably have seen on paychecks, if you've worked up to this point: Social Security and Medicare often are called FICA taxes. It comes from any type of wage that you have or self-employment. It does not apply from interest, dividends, or profits from stocks. And both the employee and the employer pay FICA taxes. So basically, you pay some out of your pay. Your employer is going to contribute to that too on their end. It's a little bit more straightforward to figure out FICA taxes. If you make less than $142,800, it's the first 7.65% that goes to that. Employer matches that. If you make over that, it's 1.45%. And then there's additional taxes if you make above 200 single or 250 married. So the example here, Susie earned wages of $48,600, $750 from interest like it was before. Contributed $1,200 to a tax deferred retirement plan, deductions of $14,250. How much does she pay in FICA taxes? So to figure this out, the total number of wages that she has was the 48,600, right? And the FICA tax was what percent? 765%. So total FICA tax owed would be the 48,600 times 0.0765. to get the number.
$3,717.9.
$3,717.90. But do you notice how this one's just a flat tax rate? It's a much easier calculation to figure out there instead of the progressive one that the federal tax is based on. Any questions relating to that? Okay, the last slide for this chapter deals with the tax deferred savings plans. So basically where you can put money into and save money on the taxes. IRAs or individual retirement accounts are good for that. Just know it has to be a traditional one to get that break. There is another one called a Roth. I think I may have mentioned it last time. For that one, you don't get the tax break right away. But when you go to take the money out later, then it's tax-free. So basically, you decide when you're going to pay the tax.
Traditional ones, you have to pay them out.
Yeah. Yep. So basically, the traditional one, you're saying, I'm going to take the tax break now, but I'm going to pay it later. The Roth one, you're saying, I'm just going to pay the tax now, but when I take it out later, I don't have to pay it. Some qualified retirement plans can go in there that are different from IRAs. But chances are you'll probably have some kind of 401k plan with your job. That's how a lot of people fund retirements nowadays when it's related to their job. So any questions relating to anything in chapter 4? Okay. So then before you go, I'm just going to hand out a couple things. For Thursday, you'll want to make sure that you have your laptops with you. The next in-class assignment is going to require a little bit of Excel. So you'll want to have that. And I also have information for first project. Did you two see the announcement that I posted in Canvas?
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, the project is going to be building off of that survey that you took. And it's basically figuring out the costs associated with making this party. But there's directions there on what you'll need to do for that. So let's see if there's anything else I need to tell you here. So just a couple of things that you should know. So Thursday we'll do the next in-class assignment, which you'll need your laptops for. After that, did you know that fall break is happening? Okay. So that means no class on Tuesday next week. Something you should know, and I'll put an announcement out for you guys closer to time. I'm probably not going to be able to be here on the 16th, that Thursday. I actually have to be in Pittsburgh that whole week for a Middle States evaluation visit. Either of you know what that is? No? Basically, it's a group of people that decide if high schools can give diplomas or not. So, like when you graduated from high school, there was an outside group that came into the school and was like, okay, your school is working, you can give diplomas. But I was invited to be on the team for that down there for a school in Pittsburgh.
That's fine.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. I was told it's going to be a lot of writing and that sort of thing, but it'll be okay. But what I'll probably do, I'll have a submission box for you for project one. And then I'll probably have a video for you in replacement of class for Thursday.
So we don't have to come here Thursday?
Nope. Nope, you won't have to. All you'll have to do is just submit this project and then watch the video that I have for you there. That sound good? Okay. So you'll have an extended fall break, at least for this class, a little bit. But I just thought I'd tell you about that before I forgot, so you're welcome. But we'll pick up here on Thursday then.